What if, right now, this very second, someone was quietly loving you from afar? Not in a cinematic grand gesture way, but silently, constantly, invisibly. They walk past you in the hallway, like your posts without ever commenting. Ask questions that don't really matter, just to hear your voice. They don't say it, maybe they can't, but deep inside, their world quietly revolves around yours. We often assume love is loud, full of words, declarations, certainty. But sometimes love is quiet, and in its quietness, it's even more powerful. Carl Jung, one of the most influential thinkers in modern psychology, believed that the most profound emotions rarely speak. They surface in dreams, in instincts, in gestures too subtle for words. What if you've already felt it? A glance that lingered too long. A name said too softly. A message that came exactly when you needed it. You didn't imagine it, you sensed it. And today, we're going to reveal the hidden signs of silent love through the lens of psychology, emotion, and human connection. Because when someone loves you silently, it doesn't mean it isn't real. It might just mean it's deeper than you ever knew. So stay with me until the end, because the 13th sign will change how you see everything. Not just them, but yourself. Love doesn't always knock on the door. Sometimes it stands quietly outside, hoping you'll notice the shadow it casts. Silent love is one of the most overlooked emotional phenomena in our modern world. We're trained to recognize romance through action, flowers, messages, declarations. But psychology tells us what's left unsaid often reveals the most. Carl Jung believed that emotions, when repressed, don't vanish. They retreat, hide, then express themselves in symbols, in dreams, in behaviors we don't fully understand. Think about it. Have you ever felt strangely drawn to someone? Not because of what they said, but because of what you felt in their presence. That subtle shift in air, that moment of tension, that gaze you felt from across the room even when your back was turned. Psychologists call this energetic attunement, when two people unconsciously sense each other's emotional field. Jung would say it's the unconscious reaching out. In silent love, the mind may deny what the soul already knows. Why is it so common? Because vulnerability terrifies people. The fear of rejection, of embarrassment, of ruining something that feels pure, keeps them silent. But here's the paradox. The more they try to hide it, the more it leaks. Through jokes, through help, through that soft goodbye that lingers longer than it should. You might have already felt this without ever realizing it was love. This isn't about fantasy. It's about awakening to the emotional world beneath the surface of the everyday. And once you learn to read it, you'll never see people the same way again. Have you ever had someone constantly tease you, mock your ideas, laugh at your quirks, challenge everything you say, but somehow they never go away? You might have brushed it off as annoyance or even arrogance, but psychology suggests something deeper: projection. Carl Jung introduced the concept of psychological projection, the idea that people often project their unconscious feelings onto others, especially emotions they're not ready to confront. When someone is secretly in love, but can't or won't accept it, the mind finds other ways to express it, and it often chooses two extremes: idealization or irritation. In the first case, they glorify you. Everything you do fascinates them. Your laugh, your thoughts, the way you stir your tea. They quote your words, even if they pretend they're not listening. In the second case, they challenge you, not because they dislike you, but because they feel too much. So instead of saying, "I admire you," they say, "You're so stubborn." Instead of, "I want to be close to you," they push you away with sarcasm. This isn't immaturity. It's emotional defense. It's their way of maintaining control when their heart is anything but controlled. What's fascinating is that people often don't realize they're doing it. Their unconscious speaks first, through tone, attention, repetition. If someone repeats your phrases, refers to you in conversation without reason, imitates your expressions, pay attention. That's projection at work. They may not have said, "I love you," but their emotional fingerprint is all over the room. One day they're warm, present, attentive, almost magnetic. The next they're cold, distant, unavailable, and impossible to reach. And just when you begin to move on, they return. Sound familiar? This emotional tug-of-war isn't just coincidence or confusion. It's a psychological pattern rooted in fear and desire. Carl Jung and attachment theorist John Bowlby both studied what happens when love gets stuck between longing and fear. It's called ambivalent attachment, a push-pull dynamic where the heart wants closeness, but the mind dreads vulnerability. Silent lovers are often caught in this cycle. When they're near you, their feelings intensify. Too powerful to handle, so they pull away to protect themselves. They tell themselves it's not real, that they're imagining things, that you wouldn't feel the same. But distance only deepens the ache, and soon they come back, through a text, a casual visit, a comment on your story, as if nothing ever happened. They can't stay, but they can't stay away. Jung believed the unconscious always seeks expression, and in this cycle, the back and forth is the expression. It's not about games. It's about a heart that hasn't found the courage to be still. If someone disappears after moments of closeness, only to find reasons to return again and again, it's not just random behavior. It's emotional gravity. And you, whether you realize it or not, are the center they're orbiting. They're not trying to confuse you. They're trying to survive the feeling of falling in love silently. Love isn't always spoken. Sometimes it simply shows up. In small gestures, in silent acts. In the unnoticed ways someone tries to make your day lighter, without asking for thanks or even acknowledgement. Carl Jung believed that repressed emotions don't just vanish, they transmute into action. That's why someone secretly in love with you may not say, "I care," but they'll bring you a cup of coffee just how you like it. They'll remember your deadlines, your headaches, your fears. They'll offer help when you don't even ask for it. It looks like kindness, but it's more than that. It's emotional service, without the badge, without the spotlight. They might downplay it. It's nothing, they'll say. But look closer. They didn't do it for everyone. They did it for you. Psychologists call this instrumental affection, when love is expressed through useful actions rather than verbal declarations. And when someone's in silent love, these gestures are their loudest language. Have you noticed someone who always seems to just know when something's off with you? Who anticipates your needs without making a show of it? That's not random. That's emotional intimacy trying to speak. Through the back door, their love might be quiet. But their actions? They're screaming everything their voice can't say. You think of them, and a message arrives. You take a new route and bump into them by accident. You mention a song, and it plays minutes later while you're together. Coincidence? Or something deeper? Carl Jung called it synchronicity. The meaningful coincidences that seem too perfectly timed to be chance. In silent love, synchronicities multiply. You keep running into each other. Your stories strangely overlap. You feel them before they appear. Why? Because when someone is emotionally and unconsciously connected to you, they move through the same emotional frequency. Even if they're not aware of it, their mind, without realizing, steers them into your orbit. They choose the same cafe. They walk into the same bookstore. They pick up on the emotional weather of your life. But here's what's powerful. Synchronicity isn't just external. You also feel it. You sense something when they're near, before even turning around. You feel a shift in the room, the atmosphere charged, the air slightly electric. That's not fantasy. That's resonance. And when it's consistent, when the universe keeps aligning your paths, it might be trying to tell you something. That your connection isn't accidental. That someone somewhere is moving closer, not through words, but through fate. And all you have to do is notice. The mouth can lie. The eyes rarely do. When someone's in silent love, their body often reveals what their words try to hide. Carl Jung believed the unconscious speaks through symbols, dreams, and, most visibly, through the body. That's why, even when a person says nothing, you might still feel everything. Watch closely. Do they glance at you, then quickly look away? Do they fidget with their sleeves, touch their hair, adjust their posture when you're nearby? Do they lean in, unconsciously mirror your movements, or angle their body toward you in a crowded space? These aren't habits. They're micro-confessions. Psychologists call these non-verbal leakage, tiny unfiltered signals from the subconscious. In silent love, the body almost betrays the heart. Even the tone of voice may shift, softer, warmer, slower when they speak to you. Their smile may be a little different, less polite, more genuine, lingering. If you ever feel like someone's presence is dialed into yours, if their energy changes when you walk in, if they're more alive or more awkward, only around you, that's not imagination. That's the soul leaning forward, even if the voice leans back. Jung was right. The unconscious always finds a way, and sometimes it speaks loudest through the silence of the body. You haven't seen them in weeks, but they showed up in your dream. Again, no grand declarations, no dramatic scenes, just presence, a conversation, a shared glance, a moment that felt so real. You woke up feeling it. Coincidence? Maybe. But Carl Jung would say otherwise. He believed that dreams are the bridge between the conscious and the unconscious, a realm where repressed emotions rise and hidden connections reveal themselves. In silent love, dreams can become the meeting ground for two hearts that haven't spoken. When someone thinks of you intensely, regularly, deeply, it creates an emotional imprint. And sometimes that energy travels. You feel it in your body. You hear their name everywhere, or you see them in your sleep. Not because you're obsessed, but because something between you remains emotionally unresolved. Some cultures believe that when two souls are meant to connect, they start to appear in each other's dreams. But there's also science. Our subconscious picks up subtle cues, body language, unspoken emotion, psychic tension, and processes them during sleep. If someone keeps appearing in your dreams, especially without a clear trigger, it might be your unconscious trying to tell you, this bond means more than you've admitted, or more than they've dared to say. Dreams don't lie. They simply echo what we've buried during the day. You laugh, and moments later, so do they. You use a quirky phrase, and suddenly it's part of their vocabulary. You switch your coffee order, and mysteriously, theirs changes too. Strange? Not really. It's called mirroring, and it's one of the most powerful unconscious signals of emotional attraction. Carl Jung saw it as a reflection of deep connection, where one person unconsciously takes on the traits of another. Why? Because when we feel drawn to someone, especially in silent love, the brain instinctively seeks to build rapport, alignment, and emotional proximity. So we copy them subtly, their posture, their gestures, even the rhythm of their speech. It's not manipulation, it's connection. The unconscious says, I feel close to you. I want you to feel the same. And the body obeys. Watch for it. Do they adjust their tone to match yours? Do they use your metaphors, quote your thoughts, align with your beliefs? Have their preferences quietly begun to resemble yours? They're not doing it on purpose, but their psyche is working overtime to build a bridge. This doesn't happen with everyone, only with those who move us deeply, often more than we can admit. Mirroring is not a tactic, it's a confession. Soft, unspoken, but real. And if someone around you is starting to feel like your reflection, their love might already be looking back at you. They act aloof, they joke too much. They avoid eye contact just a little too long. And every time the conversation gets too real, they change the subject. Confusing? Not really. Carl Jung introduced the idea of the persona, the mask we wear to navigate the world, crafted not from truth, but from what we think we must be. In silent love, that mask is often thicker, because vulnerability terrifies them. So they protect themselves with detachment, humor, even indifference. But here's the paradox. The more indifferent they act, the more they feel. Because love, especially unspoken love, is raw, dangerous, full of risk. So instead of confessing, they cover. They pretend not to care, just to see if you'll notice. It's a defense mechanism. Not against you, but against the fear that you might not feel the same. Psychologists recognize this as emotional shielding, when someone feels too much but shows the opposite. So if they joke too much, if they roll their eyes at romance, if they're warm one day, cold the next, it's not inconsistency, it's protection. Their mask says, I'm fine. Their heart whispers, I'm afraid. If you sense a contradiction between their behavior and their energy, trust the energy. Because in silent love, the persona is loudest right before the truth breaks through. And sometimes the person pretending not to care is the one who cares the most. Would you ever date someone like me? Just hypothetically. What would you do if your best friend fell in love with you? It sounds like teasing, playful, harmless. But what if it's a test? In silent love, direct confession is terrifying. So the unconscious creates emotional tests, subtle, coded ways to gauge how you feel without ever exposing vulnerability. Carl Jung believed the unconscious constantly scans for clues to validate what the conscious mind fears to ask. That's why someone secretly in love might present you with what-if scenarios. They joke about you two as a couple, then laugh it off. They ask your opinion on relationships, then listen too closely. They hint at jealousy when you talk about someone else. But play it cool. These are not casual. These are feelers. Their heart is asking, do I stand a chance? But it's hidden behind banter, hypotheticals, and jokes, because asking directly would risk rejection. And for silent lovers, that's the greatest fear. So they build these small moments like bridges, hoping you'll cross. If you don't, they retreat. If you do, they lean in, just a little more. Pay attention to the pattern. Do they create situations to watch how you react? Do their jokes feel like questions in disguise? Do they ask about your past and linger on the details? They're not gathering information. They're looking for hope. In a language only the heart understands, you don't call, you don't ask, you don't even know they noticed. But somehow, every time you need someone, they're already there. Carl Jung believed we are all connected through a deeper psychological layer, the collective unconscious. And within it, certain emotional bonds echo louder than words. In silent love, that echo takes form as presence, not in grand declarations, but in consistency. They're the one who checks in when you go quiet, the one who senses when something's off without you saying a word, the one who listens to your silence like it's music. They don't always have the perfect advice. Sometimes they don't say much at all, but they're there again and again, not because they're obligated, but because they can't not be. This isn't coincidence, it's intuition, powered by care too deep to ignore. And what's more telling, they don't expect anything in return. No recognition, no reward, just the invisible comfort of being near you when it matters most. This is what psychologists call emotional attunement, the ability to feel and respond to someone's inner world. But in silent love, it's elevated to something more, a quiet promise that even in your darkest moments, you won't be alone. Because while words may fail, their presence never does. You don't have proof. You don't have logic. But you know, there's something in the way they look at you, just a little too long, in the pauses between your words, filled with tension that never breaks, in the energy between you that feels charged, unspoken, alive. Carl Jung believed that intuition is the deepest form of knowing. It bypasses the rational mind and speaks directly from the unconscious. So when your intuition whispers, they feel something, even when everything on the surface seems normal, it's worth listening to. This isn't fantasy. It's your emotional radar picking up on subtle cues. A flicker in their eyes when you walk in. The way their energy shifts in your presence. How your name feels different when they say it. These moments aren't visible to everyone, but your body knows, your heart knows, and if you've ever felt a quiet certainty that someone cares, without ever being told, you're not imagining it. That's the power of silent love. It slips past logic, past words, past appearances, and settles in your bones. Your intuition may not always shout, but it never lies. Because love, even when hidden, still speaks. And sometimes, the heart hears it first. Some love stories don't begin with fireworks. They start in silence, in glances, in unnoticed kindness, in dreams that feel too real to dismiss. But what happens when we never speak it? How many stories never get written? Because someone was too afraid to turn the page? Maybe they're afraid of rejection. Maybe you are too. But here's the truth. Silent love is beautiful, but it's also fragile. It lives in the shadows, and shadows fade if no one brings them into the light. Carl Jung taught us that what we fail to make conscious returns as fate. So what if that person is your fate? What if this is the beginning of something extraordinary, and all it needs is one brave moment? You don't need a speech. You don't need certainty. Sometimes all it takes is a pause, a look that lingers, a question left open, a space made safe enough for someone to finally say what they've been holding in for so long. So if this message stirred something in you, if you saw someone's name flash through your mind more than once, don't let it pass. Reach out, ask the question. Leave the door open, because silent love is real. But love was made to be lived, and what begins in silence deserves the chance to become a voice, a story, a beginning, something unforgettable. So tell me in the comments, silent love always finds a way. And don't forget, subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this with someone who might need it. Because sometimes the person hiding their heart is the one who needs this message the most.